Hello and welcome to this short tutorial on IDMapper. IDMapper is a new tool I created, a new add-on that's available on Blender Market, and in this tutorial I will show you a complete workflow from assigning a vertex color layer with the use of IDMapper all the way to applying materials or creating a texture based on this ID map in Substance Painter. So we start with a mesh, a pretty simple mesh because I'm not a modeler. It's also quite a low poly mesh, and our challenge today is to assign different colors in the vertex color layer to different regions of this mesh. For this we use IDMapper, and just like any add-on in Blender, you must make sure it is enabled once you have installed this, and you will find it in the Paint menu. In the Paint menu you can enable it. Once you have enabled the add-on, you can use it in Vertex Paint mode from the Paint menu. And if you select IDMapper, the first thing you will see that it assigns colors to regions of the mesh that are similar. And you can actually control what is considered similar. The controls are located in the toolbar on the left side of the 3D view. And one of the options you have there is this Similarity slider. And if you change, or in this case reduce the similarity, more meshes, more faces will be assigned to the same regions. In this case it will have the effect of assigning a unique color to each chain link and to each individual stud on the edge of this ball. Now, this is already quite a good start, but just to make sure that all the studs have a unique color, we will change the seed, because it seems that these studs are the same color. But if we change the seed and we assign new random colors to all the regions, you will see that these studs were actually assigned a different color after all. So now we have a mesh with a different color for different regions of the mesh. The next step is to tweak this assignment, because we are not completely satisfied yet. For instance, we want to have all the links of the chain the same color, because after all we will assign the same color to these links. As you can see, if you select Match in the options, then all meshes that have been assigned a different color but have the same geometry, that is the same number of faces that are facing in the same direction, have the same normal, will be assigned the same color. So here all our chain links will be colored green in this case. The same goes for the studs. They have the same geometry as well, so they have received the same color. For some reason the ledge has the same color as the studs as well. That's something that we correct in a moment when we use IDMapper's Facepaint mode. Also, the top half of the ball and the bottom half of the ball have a different color, and we would like to give it the same color, because probably these parts of the mesh are assigned the same material. They have been assigned a different color because the top half has this ring attached, so it doesn't have the same geometry. Now we can go to Facepaint mode using the P key, and that will change the cursor in this fancy ring with brackets, and this will allow you to manipulate the colored regions. You can sample the color of a region using the S button, and it will show a eyedropper, and then the brush color will become the color of the selected region. It doesn't take into account any shading, so it actually samples the face color of one of the faces of this region. So it doesn't matter which chain link you select in this case, in both scenarios you will get green. Now if we hover the cursor on another colored region and press K, then the brush color will be assigned to all the faces in this colored region, as we will do here. Likewise, we can use this approach to make the color of the top half of the ball and the bottom half of the ball the same. So we select the color of the top half by pressing S, and then color the bottom half by applying the K key when we hover over the bottom half. Now, what we also want to do is assign a different color to these two ledges, because now they are the same color as the studs and we would like to have it a different color. So what we do is we leave Facepaint mode by pressing either the right mouse button or escape, and then select a different color for the brush, something that we choose ourselves. Here we take a light brownish color, go to Facepaint mode again by pressing P, and then use K to color the upper ledge and do the same for the lower ledge. So that's pretty much the way we want to look at it. And we could actually export our model now and start in Substance Painter. But what we want to do first is transfer this Vertex paint layer, this Vertex color layer, to a high res or high poly version of this model. And indeed we have one prepared. This high poly model simply has the subsurface modifier applied to it. After all, this is just a demonstration, but it does have a lot more faces, and we will show how you can use an option in IDMapper to transfer a vertex color layer from a low poly model to a high poly model, simply by going to Vertex Paint mode and then selecting from the Paint menu the vertex color copy, and that will show up a drop down where you can select the low poly mesh. So here we have the two meshes, our own mesh and the low poly mesh, and if we select this low poly mesh, then the vertex color layer will be copied over to the high poly version as well as possible. And as you can see, it does do quite a good job, but there are some minor details that might be improved. For instance, the edges of the studs are a little bit irregular. So there are these little protrusions that you want to remove. And that is something that we can do in Facepaint mode again. If we go to Facepaint mode by pressing P, then you see that in the lower boundary of the screen there is this little help message that gives you some hints. And one of the options that you have is smoothing a colored area. If you hover the mouse over a colored area and press W, then any irregularities will be removed. And that's what we do with the yellow area that is representing this band. Now, what we also like to do is make these blue areas of the studs a little bit tighter. They are a little bit too wide for our taste, so we want to reduce this. And one of the options we have in Facepaint mode is to either increase or decrease the area that a colored region takes by using the numpad plus or minus tool. And if we press numpad plus, you see that the yellow area is expanded, but not just into the blue regions of the studs, but also over the edge. So we want to restrict this expansion to just the blue color. And the way to do this is to sample this blue color by moving the mouse over to the blue area of the stud, then pressing S to sample the color, and then press Alt numpad plus to restrict the expansion to just the blue color. So in this case the yellow color of the band only expands into the blue areas of the studs because we use the Alt key. So now we have a face color assignment that can be used as an IDMap. So all we have to do is export this model, this object, to the file system so that we can use it in Substance Painter. And we use the FBX exporter for this. It's commonly used when transferring game assets, or any assets really, between Blender and Substance Painter, because it also bundles the vertex color layer. So you don't just have the mesh information and the normals, but also the vertex color layer. Make sure you check selected objects only, Previous runs of this tutorial already made some exports, so we use ball and chain 3.fbx in this example, and then export it to the file system. The next step is to actually use our exported model and the associated vertex color layer to apply materials and create textures inside Substance Paint. In Substance Painter, we will create a new project, import our mesh by simply selecting the PBR Metal Rough workflow and then select our FBX exported mesh from the list of objects we have in this file system. We use OpenGL for the normals, but of course that depends on your requirements. That is not relevant to the tutorial at this point. And if we click OK, the model will be imported. There it is. The next step is to actually bake the textures that are the initial versions of the textures. Now, this is about ID mapping, and as you will see, if we select ID map, that the default that comes with Substance Painter already takes this ID app information from the vertex color layer. So we don't have to do anything special. We can just click Bake Textures, and all the relevant textures, including an ID map, will be created for us. This will take a couple of seconds, of course, depending on the power of your machine and the resolution of your mesh. But as soon as it's done, the maps Substance Painter has created will show up in this list, including our ID map. And now with this ID map available to us, it's very simple to assign different substances to different parts of the mesh. So if we take this weathered brass or weathered bronze and put it into the substance stack, then of course the whole mesh will be colored using this material. So our next step is to add a color selection mask. And if we add this mask, we can simply pick a color from anywhere in our ID map to limit the application of the material. So now our ball is the weathered brass material, but we also want to assign it to the ring and to the ledge and the area between the studs. So when we pick these colors, we have our brass material, weathered bronze material, or whatever it is, applied to the regions that we want. The next step is to apply a substance to just the studs in the ball. So here we use a sort of bronze, polished bronze. Select simply the color from the studs, and now this bronze material is limited to just the studs. We can repeat this for the change and the chain links and the handle. For the chain links, we want to use some sort of rusty iron. It's not in the smart materials, I think, but in the regular materials I have it somewhere. Rusty iron. And again, it's just a repetition of moves really. We add an ID mask or add a color selection mask, then pick the color or colors that we want to apply this material to, and we're done. So our final step is repeating these steps for the handle, and for that we use a sort of polished wood material. Again, add a color selection mask. Pick the colors that we want to use, that's for the handle and for the tip of the handle. And there you have it. Quick and easy application to selected areas of the mesh by using an ID map. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something, and hope you learned something about IDMapper. See you next time.